Well, hello, and good morning to all of you out there who want to write a novel in 9 weeks. I am Akira Angel, chief host, coach, and motivator. And today we are on day 3 of our program. Let's see. So, today is day 3, building your characters. And this is the second part, right? Today we're going to talk about heroes, villains, and how characters work together. Again, this is just going to be an overview, but it's going to give you the bones that you need to construct your novel, right? All right. So a reminder from yesterday, the question was, what is the purpose of your characters, right? The purpose of your characters is always to teach a lesson or to express a theme, all right? And the theme is what you want to teach readers through the story. So that is what you always have to keep in mind as you're writing. What are different ways that I can express this theme, even that I didn't have in my outline or my plot, right? All right. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about complex themes. So complex themes are those which combine the major conflict with the character arc. And that is what I'm trying to get you to do in this novel course. There are several reasons for that, but the first one is that if you learn how to do this from the beginning, it will just become intuitive to you that you understand that when you build your character, you need to incorporate the theme into it, right? The other thing is that all of the best books do this, whether the author did it intuitively or whether they did it, on purpose. So if we're striving to be, we're striving to write a novel, but we're striving to write a great novel. We're not just striving to write any old thing that we can. If you really want to write a great novel, you're going to need to incorporate this complex theme. All right, so characters in a novel work together. And preferably in like 3s or 4s or 5s. The number of characters that you need in the novel depends on a couple of things. The first thing that it depends on is, are you going to write a series? Because if you write a series, and let's say you have different main characters in each plot, right? You're going to want some characters that are the same throughout the series. So maybe you start with like 5 brothers. And each book is going to feature a different brother. Or let's say that you have, 5 people in a military command, or you have, there was a great series by Piers Anthony where each one was about one was about the fates, one was about death, one was about Gaia. So they were kind of like the Greek gods and goddesses. So anyway, however you want to do it, it's very good to introduce all of the characters that you want to have in your novel series in your first novel, not too quickly. Okay, you really only want to introduce your main characters in the first couple of chapters. But over the course of the novel, you want to think about what other characters do I want to have in this series so that you can write about all of them, right? And the other thing is that you want to think about how these characters are going to work together and how they're going to be different. And the best way for you to do that is to start differentiating that at the beginning. And I'm going to explain how to do that in this PowerPoint. All right, so the biggest thing is that characters in the novel work together, right? And I'm going to kind of show you this with Leia, Luke, and Han. Sorry, I keep going back to Star Wars or Harry Potter. I just feel like those are kind of ubiquitous and people know those stories, right? So with Leia, whether we talk about kind of their politics, their socioeconomic status, or their values, they all are different based on their kind of status in society, right? So Leia is a princess. She's obviously rich. She would be representing kind of the capitalist class. And she has these traditional values, these kind of esoteric, freedom, justice, I feel like the ancient Greek virtues is what she's going to express here, holding yourself upright, the ability to talk well, all of these all of these, character attributes that we would see in these ancient Greek orators, right? All right, and then Luke is kind of the complete opposite of that. He's ignorant. He doesn't even know about the politics of the universe. He doesn't know about the empire. He's just a worker. So basically, one of the proletariat. He's relatively poor. He has these kind of traditional family values. It would be, just work hard, get your paycheck, this kind of thing. Even though he's fighting against it, that's kind of where he was raised. So those are kind of going to be what he expresses during the series. Like, for example, when it comes down to it, he's like, well, we used to shoot swamp rats and, back home, and they're not bigger than, 2 meters. So basically, he is bringing that kind of, working class mindset to the story. And then we have Han, who basically is like, outside of that. He hates both. He doesn't like the Empire and he doesn't like the Rebellion. I got to laugh. My husband suggested calling him a contractor. So basically he's a contractor, bounty hunter, and he's in flux with the market, right? So if the market for bounty hunting is good, he's going to be rich, and if it's bad, it's going to be poor. And if a job goes wrong, he's going to be in debt with a bounty on his head from Java, right? Jabba. So then also his basic values are anti-traditional. So the only thing he values is money, right? It's not family. It's not, freedom and justice. It's just show me the cash, show me the money. And so through these three characters, what you'll see in the series, and it was probably, best described in the first movie, but what you find is that they can come together, and each one of them has to have kind of a different character arc to get to this. But the idea that freedom is more important than money, the consequences of military rule, and how people need to rise up to defend freedom, and the idea of bravery versus fear. Han might say that he just doesn't care, but at the end of the day, he had a lot of fear within him, and he needed to have a cause to kind of get past that fear and be able to go for, become part of the rebellion and go for what he really wanted deep down. Okay, so the characters will work together often in threes, as we saw with that. So with Star Wars. So we'll have like 3 heroes. We have a hero, a sidekick, and a villain. 2 lovers and a best friend. Twilight, we have one girl and 2 guys. However you want to do it. If it's a reverse harem, it's 1 girl and 5 guys, right? So it depends on your type of story. But the characters do work together often in threes. And what we'll see is that we do try to plot them, how we did in Star Wars. We do try to plot them so that they will come down differently on the theme that you are trying to express, right? So one is super brave, one is ignorant, one is, totally afraid, running the opposite direction. That is probably the best way to express your theme, is to have one that's completely for it, one that's against it, and one that's on the fence, right? So I also took a look at Harry Potter in this, and they also have the political, socioeconomic status and values. I thought of a different one, which was taking action. Harry's always the one who wants to take action, hurry up, get things done, start the secret society, this kind of thing. And then Hermione, at first, she knows about these things like mudbloods and elves and the house elves and this kind of stuff. But, when she first arrives at school, she's not doing anything about that. And over the series, you kind of see her go from this kind of passive to active individual as she becomes more passionate about these things, right? And then Ron, he pretty much remains passive throughout the whole series, even running away in book 8 until the very, very end, right? Where he comes back in the last battle. But it's really nice to see the conflicts between these people for their, the passive to active, their passive to active tendencies as they play off of each other, and kind of what they teach you about taking action versus running away. I think it's just a lot more subtle in there because their values, because they're children, their political values aren't necessarily expressed as strongly as they were in, Luke, Leia, and Han, who are like fully adults and already, in their careers doing what they need to do. So anyway, we have kind of the same thing here with their political status. So, Harry is ignorant. He's the ignorant to becoming a rebel. Hermione is knowledgeable to becoming a rebel. And then Ron is just a rebel from the outset, but unfortunately, he's a passive rebel. So that is in itself a different type of, character. All right, and then socioeconomic status. Obviously, Harry's rich. Hermione's middle class to upper middle class. Her parents are dentists, right? So she's living the good life. And Ron is poor. And then with their values, this is very interesting because they weren't. I don't know if J.K. Rowling planned them off of some kind of chart, but when I'm looking at them, I feel like Harry is about like finding truth and taking action. Hermione is about hard work and knowledge, and Ron is about family and friends. So we have this kind of truth, knowledge, friendship, which isn't necessarily the one of the classic setups, but it works. And so it kind of goes to show you that however you want to set up your characters, it really is up to you, and you can make things work. Sometimes it'll be easier, and sometimes it'll be more difficult. But it really comes up to you what you want to express, right? And through these three, she's really allowing us, through the plot, to understand and to read into these themes. So in the various books, we'll see questions about what is the true value of money, right? We see that with Harry and Ron, but we also see it play out through the adults. The traditional wizarding families are the wealthy ones with the huge estates, and the fur coats and this kind of stuff. So what is the value of money? Does it make you a better person? Does it allow you more opportunities? What exactly does that do? Or is it kind of worse for you? Does it make you more selfish? Those kind of questions are kind of asked all the way through. If I'm thinking of the different books, she asks these little questions all the way through. The next one, what is the value of knowledge? In the first one, Hermione is extremely knowledgeable, but she doesn't have any friends. So, we start asking these questions of like, what is knowledge if you don't have friends? Or what is the value of taking action if you don't have knowledge? Or what is the value of knowing that there should be a rebellion and that things are wrong, but not doing anything about it? So having knowledge, but not doing anything. So anyway, that's a complex theme that then gets expressed in different ways throughout the novels. And then the third one is, what are we willing to sacrifice for our friends? And I think we see that in a lot of these novels, right? Even starting in the beginning when Ron is playing chess and seeing that it's a game until he realizes that it's not a game, and people are actually going to get hurt and someone could die. The question goes all the way through the novels of what are we willing to sacrifice? How important is friendship? And these three characters then, kind of illustrate that for us in this very small way, but it also echoes throughout the sub-characters and subplots and things that happen in the series, right? So my basic point is that if you set up your characters correctly, you're going to be able to express these themes. They will just automatically come out, right? And before I go on to villains, I'm going to say it isn't as difficult as you think that it is. All right. So today we're going to set up three characters, and you don't have to know in advance all of the ways in which they're going to interact and all of the ways in which these themes are going to be expressed. Because believe it or not, your unconscious mind does a lot of these things for you. Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze there. Okay, so your unconscious mind will do a lot of these things for you as you are going to write your novels. And the other thing is that as you're writing through, you will come up with new ideas, as you look back over your plot. And each day before you start writing your new chapter, you'll be amazed at, when you read the line of what this chapter is supposed to be about, how your mind automatically says, oh, this is a good place where I could, express that theme. So don't worry about making all the connections now. Just worry about making all of your characters be different and different on these kind of ideas of socioeconomic status, values, virtues, whatever you want them to be different on, have them be different enough that they're going to have some real push and pull between them as the novel goes on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about are villains, right? And in this case, I'm going to talk about the villains and their themes being at cross purposes to the hero. So both the hero and the villain are quite self-serving, right? Especially in the beginning, most of the heroes, have this growth that they have to go through. So they may actually both be self-serving, but they're self-serving in different ways. One of the great ones that I'm thinking of is Guardians of the Galaxy, where Chris Pratt's character is quite selfish and naive and all of that. He's very self-serving at the beginning. And actually, so is the villain. Thanos is quite self-serving and just mean, but then they're trying to accomplish their goals in completely different ways. Right? So they may start the same, but one is kind of moral and ethical. One is like immoral and unethical, right? So what you want to do is you want to give them goals which are at cross purposes. And there's a great movie. Well, it's not great. It's actually one of my least favorite movies, but I'm going to mention it here. It's Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, You've Got Mail. Where she's a very small bookstore owner. He owns a very large bookstore, and they end up getting together by emailing each other. I can't even remember if it was a dating service, but obviously her goal is to keep her little bookstore running. His goal is to bring in his conglomerate bookstore chain and take out her little bookstore, right? Because he wants all of the market. This is a great setup for a romance. But the ending was very unfortunate because, of course, his conglomerate takes out her chain and then she's reading in his bookstore in the end. It's really an awful movie from a story point of view. So, but anyway, it really illustrates how we have the hero and the villain at cross purposes. And you can see how that writing is bad because actually the villain wins, right? And we don't really want to write plots that are that way. And then they try to make it okay by saying, well, they got together anyway. So, the romance was fulfilled. But I don't really think that the romantic arc can be fulfilled if the villain wins, right? So that's something also to play with. And I would encourage you, as you're learning these things, to apply them to novels and movies so that you can see the weaknesses in them. I knew I didn't like that movie, but I didn't know why I didn't like it until I started thinking about heroes and villains and character arcs, right? So, anyway, this is a great, looking at the hero and villain character arc may tell you why you don't like certain movies. And it's very subtle, but it's amazing how many authors or how many screenplay writers don't take this into account when they're writing, right? It's basically just levels of knowledge. All right, so the best books have villains whose goals are at cross purposes to the hero for a great self-serving reason, all right? So, for example, Neo wants to be free of the Matrix, and the agents want to make it stronger. The agents are a great villain because they are part of the Matrix. If the Matrix goes down, they're done, right? Very self-serving. For Neo, if the if the Matrix exists, in his opinion, humanity is done, right? So it's this wonderful goals at cross purposes. And the really amazing thing in the Matrix is that as you go on, I think in like two or three, or the Animatrix or whatever, we see that when they first created the machines actually wanted to work with people, but people then, as the machines got stronger, wanted to take them out. So we actually see that the people that we think are the heroes, which would be humanity, are also kind of the villains. They really started this war, so then the machines fought back, and this is how it went. So that's a great villain. It's understandable. It starts very, evil, but then it becomes understandable, and then it's relatable even. And so now we're thinking, oh, geez, the hero is the hero. We know why he has to win, but you also kind of feel for the villain too. And you can understand them. And one thing I didn't put in here was that, there's a great saying that the hero can only be as smart as the villain is. That's why I think Sherlock Holmes are some of the greatest mysteries of all time, because, Moriarty is such a fantastic villain. And if you can get fantastic, smart, conniving, cunning villains, that can make your hero have to work so much harder and be smarter and be more fantastic. So it's a sad fact that the villain creates the hero, or that the obstacles create the hero. So you basically want to torture your hero as much as you can and make your villains as strong as you can to give yourself a great story. My second example is from Serenity. I don't know if you've ever seen Firefly or Serenity, but there's a great Serenity is just a fantastic movie. And Mal wants the alliance. So there's an alliance. It's kind of like the Empire, but, without the Jedi and the magic. He wants this alliance to fail because he knows that there's a dark side to the utopia. He knows that when they take over a planet, there are just, millions of people that don't want that. And that's on every planet, right? There's just a mixture of population everywhere. Some want really strong government. Some don't want really strong government, right? He's on the side that doesn't want a strong government. And so Mal wants the alliance to fail because he knows there's a dark side to this kind of strong, imperial, militaristic government, which is the alliance. And then we have the operative, who basically thinks that having, a one world government is going to bring about a utopia, a world without sin, right? And even though he knows that he himself doesn't belong in it, he believes that once they have this utopia, they won't need spies and they won't need rebels because the world is going to be so fantastic, right? That's a wonderful setup for a hero and a villain. Both of them have massively strong goals. They're at cross purposes to each other. We want to bring a stronger alliance, or we want to break it down completely. And both of the hero and the villain are willing to die for it, right? That gives you so much latitude in your story to express, different themes. So his idea of a world without sin as he's going around and murdering people is really fantastic. And also backstory. There's, the first 7 minutes of Serenity is probably the most fantastic backstory I've ever seen on a character. Because the movie came at the end of the series, but it gives you this backstory into what happened before the series even began. And I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you get a chance, you really should see it. But having the strong hero and the strong villain gives you so much, opportunity to express their themes through your plot. You really, really want to focus on that. If you have a classic hero and villain, and even if you don't, like the Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movie, even if it's just, two characters going against each other, give them a very strong purpose. And make sure that the person that you have as the hero, like the first point of view character, wins. All right. The next one, and I love the setup too. I thought that the reboot of X-Men with Patrick Stewart was just fantastic. Okay. So we have this classic setup where the hero thinks that whoever it is should work with humans. So we have it in X-Men. We have our mutants. They should be friendly with the humans. They should work with them to create a better humanity. And then we have Magneto on the other side who says, we should rule. We are the new ones. And humans haven't even been kind to us anyway. Another setup that's absolutely fantastic, right? Hero and villain are at cross purposes, and both of them have a good reason. That just makes it so human. Oh, there's this beautiful moment where they're playing. Charles Xavier is playing chess with Magneto in his prison, and you can just see the humanity and the understanding. And when Charles Xavier dies, Magneto's assistant says something really rude, and he says, "You have no idea what a great man we just lost." And that to me is really it's a really fantastic setup where you have the hero and villain who have this underlying respect for each other, and they know that they made each other great, even though they disagreed on values. I think it can really teach us something. And, Transformers has that great storyline too, where, Optimus Prime thinks we should work with humans, and then we have Megatron, who thinks that we should rule the humans and just wipe out humanity if they're getting in the way. So you can see that that's a fantastic storyline as well. All right, so I've been saying all along, but I want to make it clear that it's better when the villain's goals are understandable and relatable to the reader. And we can see that. I'll give you a couple more movies where you can take a look. Murder on the Orient Express, Dune with the House of Harkonnen, basically losing the planet of Arrakis, right? So now they're losing all of their income. It really gives them, even though we don't like them, we can understand the reason why they are against the House of Atreides, right? So, and then Darth Vader, he loses the love of his life, and he goes through immense physical pain, losing limbs, not being able to breathe on his own. We can really understand why their goals, why they have their goals, and what they're looking for. And that is very important. It's just as important, if not more important, than the heroes. Okay. A lot of heroes start out not actually knowing what they want, and then that becomes more defined as the villain's goal is shown, right? So you want to make sure that from the beginning, you know what your villain's goal is, and that they're working exactly the opposite as to what the hero wants. All right. All right. The villain should be as detailed as the hero. There was a great quote I heard in a class, which was, the villain is the hero of their own story. And that is such a great line, because to the villain, he really is a hero, right? He's the only one that understands the world. He's the only one that sees it as it really is. So you want him, when you write the villain, you want to write him as a hero. The goal of the villain should be clear, understandable, and sympathetic. And the way of going about the goal should be wrong. It should either be morally wrong, ethically wrong, sick or twisted, and that is what puts them at odds with the hero. All right? Oftentimes the way that they would accomplish their goal or try to accomplish their goal is something that the hero would never do. And I have some examples here. Lex Luthor is willing to kill people for what he wants. Superman will not. So they have this, values line where they will not cross. And a lot of times in a sequel or something, you'll have the hero cross that line and kind of become dark and then pull themselves back. So that's kind of a great, second or third novel. But in the first one, you never want them to cross that line. You want them to have this moral kind of boundary that they won't cross. In Batman Begins, we see this in all three movies, right? So in the first one, it's Ducard who wants to destroy the whole city. And then in the second one, we have Bane or the Joker, and in the third one we have Bane, and they're always at cross purposes because their ways of achieving their goals are completely the opposite of how Batman would do it. So they're willing to kill people, they're willing to take down the city, they don't care who gets in their way. Batman is always about order and, kind of live and let live. So they're at cross purposes. In Infinity War, it's very interesting, where Thanos is willing to sacrifice half of the population of the universe to bring kind of peace and order, and he believes the universe is overpopulated and they're running out of resources. So he's willing to sacrifice half of everybody to get this kind of, population boom to subside and to give everybody enough resources. Whereas, the Guardians of the Galaxy and all of the Avengers are obviously not willing to do that. So it's really interesting because there is this moment where he's sitting there and there's this peace after half the people are gone. And you can actually feel his point of view, why he did that. Even though you know it's wrong, you can understand it. All right, and then I have two other must-watch movies that I'm not going to spoil for you. Unbreakable and Ender's Game. If you want to see some great villains. Those are fantastic and unexpected villains, but they are as detailed as the hero, and they are at cross purposes. All right, so now we're going to talk about creating characters according to categories. All right, so the best thing that I've seen, authors do is basically write down a table, and you're going to have categories for each of your characters. So I'll give you an example of seasons. We have summer, fall, winter, and spring. You could have 4 sisters, and each one kind of represents one of these seasons. And it's very subtle at the beginning, right? Maybe they just kind of wear dresses according to their season. And then basically they, something comes up and they each react differently according to how you believe that season would react. My example would be, how would they feel about love? Would fall and spring ever get together? And what about children? Would winter really want to have children? Or would summer want to have, children? Or maybe adopt older children? Like, we have to think about all the different varieties of ways that these characters would react based upon how we've categorized them. All right, and then traits. So you could categorize them as things that they want, traits that they aspire to, or things that they want. So love, money, knowledge, and family. You can look at the classic Greek virtues like prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. I think Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility was kind of a play on those virtues, right? And vices. So you could do murder, greed, lust, and envy. And you could also have those vices be something that they're trying to overcome. So that's how they started out. And then they want to overcome that to become, the hero in the end, or the heroine in the end, as at the climax. And then, an example of animals: cat, dog, lion, mouse. Just pick your animals. And it's great because those categories will start to give you character traits or movements or things like that. Maybe the lion's always like shaking their hair back, and the mouse is always, like brushing their face, or the cat's always, twirling their hair. However you want to do it, the categories will give you some body language. They'll give you how they respond to things. They can start to give you a format for your character, or a way to think about your character before you even start writing, right? All right, so here I'm going to talk about using the categories to create traits and conflicts. So we have summer as being an ending, fall is a decline, winter is death, spring is rebirth. I don't know why summer, I don't know why I put ending, I'm sorry. Summer is really like in the middle of everything. So that shouldn't be there. Here, let me Let me fix that right now so that if you go back and look at this. So summer is full swing, or it's at the height. If I can spell. It's at the height of what we are, of life, right? Fall is the decline, winter is the death, and spring is rebirth. All right, so we can start putting personality traits, even ages, and differences from the ideas of these characters. So what does spring look like? How do they walk, talk, and act? And how do they see the world? We can also start pulling moral conflicts from these. How would spring see love versus how would fall see love? Who's more apt to fall in love over and over again, right? Who's more apt to have kind of one love and then, expect it to fizzle out at any moment? How would they see money? Could spring and fall ever get together? And what kind of character arcs would they have to go through to bring them together, right? All right, so we can also, once we have our categories or kind of ideas of our characters and how they fit in, then we can add themes. So we can add external values to these. So let me explain here. We have our categories, which is cat, dog, mouse, and lion, right? And this is how they think about money. The cat needs money, the dog wants money, the mouse fears money, and the lion is a thief. And then how they think about people. So the cat might think all people are liars, the dog, all are trustworthy, the mouse, all are redeemable, and the lion might think they're all unredeemable. So this is going to be a really great way. Let's say that they're all in a group that robs banks, right? This is a really great way to differentiate your characters, right? Needing it, wanting it, fearing it, and being happy to be the thief, right? Let's say that they're all doctors in a hospital. That brings a completely different context there, right? And the way that we can get unexpected characters is by changing these animals around. So, for example, what if you had a lion who feared money and a mouse who was a thief, right? And they get together and rob banks. So we see this a lot in children's books where we have these unexpected, like Sing. The koala is really the movie Sing. The koala is the kind of con artist, right, of the group. And you wouldn't expect it because he's like a cute, cuddly koala, right? So you can create wonderful characters by switching around the expectations that people would have of these categories. And obviously you're not going to call your characters a cat or a dog or a mouse or a lion, but if you give them those traits, like you give the big burly guy, right, the characteristics of the lion, and then you make him fear money, it's great because it's something that's completely unexpected, and the readers they will subconsciously understand what you're doing, and they will get a laugh out of it, right? All right. So today we are going to create character arcs for characters 2 and 3. So we have character 1, and even if you didn't plot them in a category yesterday, I want you to try to think of a category that you could put them in. How do you really want to set up this character versus your other characters? All right? Here's a reminder that the character arc stems from the theme. And from the theme, you create their opposing weakness, right? So if the theme is bravery, the weakness is cowardice, right? If the theme is learning how to commit, then the weakness is fear of commitment. So you're always going to have this opposite. They're going to be the opposite at the beginning as you want them to be at the end. And the same goes for the villain in a way, too. What happens with the villain oftentimes is that they get to the climax of the novel and they refuse to change. They don't have the character change. So like Darth Vader, at the climax, he's like, he saves his son, but he's like, I'm too old for this. I just want to be done. So he ends up, dying on the Death Star. So the hero has opportunity to complete the character arc. the villain's character arc is usually incomplete for a variety of reasons. I mean, Lex Luthor goes to jail. Like, there are a variety of reasons that you kind of cut that short. Like with Lex Luthor, it's great. You put him in jail and then he lives to fight another day. So you can decide how you want to finish the villain's character arc. But it shouldn't be complete. Or if it is complete, it's pretty much going to be a sad ending. Like, the new Star Wars, where Han and Leia's son he basically completes the character arc, but then, for good writing, he really does have to die because he's done so many horrible things that, even though to me it was a horrible ending, because I feel like he then kind of redeemed himself and he could have done a lot of good. But anyway, for the writing, they decided to just let him complete the villain character arc and he had to die. So with the character arc, you're going to give them the weakness. First, they're going to fight against it, and it's going to cause them problems, but then it becomes their strength and how they win the final battle. So again, with Neo, his weakness is the Matrix, or that he can't control the Matrix, and learning to control it and live outside of it saves his life. With Captain Kirk, his weakness is kind of foolish rashness. He's fighting and brash, but in the end, it is always his ability to take quick, decisive action that saves everyone on his ship, right? And with Spock, his weakness is his control, or his perceived lack of control. Like, he thinks he can't control his emotions, but to everyone else, he looks like he is in control, right? They're just inside of him. But at the end, it's his heart that saves him by allowing him to form, a friendship with Kirk. And it allows him to really save everybody by sacrificing himself because he understands the value of life and the value of humanity. So my question for you, who cried in Star Trek II when Spock dies? I remember it being really horrifying because he was finally coming to terms with his emotions and understanding who he was and becoming an amazing character. And then, he dies. So the reason for that is because you've journeyed with him through his struggles. So you kind of saw this, you saw him like talking to his parents and understanding more about himself. And the understanding that he has these deep emotions allows you to see why he walks in there and he sacrifices himself for everyone else. And that makes a great character, right? It's a perfect character arc where he starts out, you think he doesn't have emotions. You learn that he does. His emotions allow him to sacrifice himself. It's fantastic. It's great for a secondary character, okay? Because you can't have Captain Kirk do that. Although they do in the next movie. But you really can't... you really shouldn't do that with your main hero. I mean, you can, but you're not going to have you might have a book 2 with another character, but your readers probably won't like it. All right, let's see. All right, so your homework for today is the character arcs and interactions worksheet. And so you are going to start thinking about how you can make plot points. So on this character arcs and interactions worksheet, I basically have the, let's see if I put it in here for you here. I basically have the categories for character 1, 2, and 3, or you're going to express your themes. Then you're going to plot your categories, and then you're going to think about the themes that you can have for each character. Now, I've had that you can have, up to 3 categories and up to 3 themes. If you just take one category and plot each character on that, and then you plot each theme on that, that really is enough, all right? Especially for a first novel. Now, if you're already a writer and you've written many novels, then basically you can take a look and have these second themes and third themes because you're already in the habit of expressing it. So what I really want you to do is I want you to take what you're used to doing and I want you to increase it by 1 level. So if you're used to expressing, if you haven't done it before, just do 1. If you're used to expressing 1 main theme and, thinking of 1 category for your characters, then just go to two, right? And if you're used to doing three, like I had in my Morgan book, if you're used to doing three, you may not go to four, but try to see if you can make them more complicated or more complex in a certain way, fitting in more with the plot. All right. So wherever we're at, we just want to try to go up one in this time that we have today. Okay, so the character arcs and interactions worksheet is at this URL, and the QR code is on your screen. We are going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break um, to get your coffee and run in place for a minute because you've probably been sitting for at least 45 minutes now. So run in place for a minute, go out and chase your dog or cat around, and then we'll be back in 5 minutes to keep going. Okay, we are back. So we are going into our first sprint, and here is our building your characters, arts, and interactions worksheet. Um, Go ahead and start building your characters, working through. Um, and if you have any questions, I'm on live. So I'm on the chat. You can put them in there, or if you're watching this later, you can put your questions in the comments, and I will answer them. Um, and if you have any feedback, obviously this is the first time I've run this class. So if you have any feedback on these worksheets, you can go ahead and tell me about it. And I will try to make some changes to make it easier for people to use these worksheets in building their characters, right? All right. So we are going to start right now. 40 minutes for our first sprint, and good luck. Okay, how did you do? Um, we are done with our first sprint, so it's time to stand up and stretch. Um, if you wrote something amazing for your themes, put your characters in great categories, or anything like that, go ahead and share it with us in the comments. Other writers want to learn from what you're doing, and then you can learn from what they're doing as well. So, I really hope that this exercise was helpful for you in thinking about how to plan your characters interacting together and working together, rather than just kind of, plotting individual characters without any rhyme and reason to it, which is how I first started, right? Um, all right, so our break now is to drink water. Lots of water. I love these huge mason jars. Each one is 4 cups, and I think I go through, if you go through two a day, that would be 8 glasses of water. Um, but I think I go through around three, especially if I'm doing a lot of speaking or something like that, or a lot of writing, right? Because you want your brain to be lubricated. So, anyway, you're going to drink water, and the recommended exercise is to dance to a song. Um, I have Coldplay's Sky Full of Stars. It's like 4 minutes and 16 seconds that I find perfect for a 5 minute break. All right, so we will take a break, and I will see you back here in 5 minutes for our next sprint. All right, we are back for another round of sprinting, right? Um, so in this one, we are going to work from the chart and we are going to start plotting out some of these complex themes. So, and some conflicts that your characters can have during the novel. I really left this page blank because I'm not sure how you want to structure your mind map, right? But first, I want you to just really think about how can these conflicts play out during your story. So, again, you may not even have an idea of your plot, but as we saw yesterday, with Neo's character arc, you can basically start looking at these character arcs and the interactions that characters are going to have, even if you have no idea what story they're going to be in, right? Some things are just universal. So if you have your categories and if you have the themes that you want to express, start thinking about that. And that's going to go a long way to helping you once we start developing the plot in the next few days, right? All right, so we're working on complex themes and conflicts. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and write them in the comments or put them in the live chat, right? All right. And I'll see you back in 20 minutes. Okay, and we are back. So we finished sprint number two, and I'm wondering, can you see how categorizing these characters is naturally allowing you to build up conflict between them and to illustrate your themes? I really hope you can. Um, the first time I did this process, it was just fantastic, and now I really can't do writing without it because my characters don't have enough depth and conflict. And I find myself, having to make it up, which leads to other problems, kind of tangents and going off in different directions. So, anyway, hopefully, this sprint really allowed you to see these complex themes and how they arise naturally when your characters are developed right from these different perspectives. All right, so we are going to go into break number three. So today, the break is going to be drinking water and 2 minutes of upper body stretching. To be honest, I'm out of coffee, so for me, it's also coffee. All right, and I will see you back here in 5 minutes. If you're starting now, the QR code and the worksheet are on the right, and we will be back in 5 minutes with our next sprint. And we are back with a fresh refill of coffee and a new cup of water. Um, Hopefully, you did the upper body stretching. You know, it's never a bad idea to stretch out your shoulders and your arms, especially if you're writing. And one tip that they told me was that when you're writing, your arms should always be at 90 degrees to your body when you're typing. So if you're typing up here or you're typing too low, you're going to end up feeling more pain in your joints than if you were at 90 degrees. So that is something to think about as you write, and if you're spending 3 hours a day roughly in a writing position. All right, sprint 3 is 20 minutes. And for this page, this is actually just an example. And then the next page, you will see this chart, but it will be empty. And this is a wonderful example of a character arc. And it's from a new movie. It's from Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And I kind of write down here how her character arc is plotted against the storyline of the novel. So, for example, we have the weakness and how they will overcome it in the beginning. Then we have our plot points. Then we have the climax and the resolution. And what I do is I kind of talk about her character arc, and then to the right, I talk about the plot. And so then today, what I give you is an empty sheet of this. Let's see, I may have it here. And I'd like you to roughly do the same thing. So you will have your character arc plotted here for each character, right? You've character 1, character 2, and character 3. And you may not have your plot points yet, right? Because we're not to the plotting section. But at least you have an idea of how this character could evolve from their weakness to the to the climax where they overcome the weakness as they go along. So anyway, we're going to do next sprint for 20 minutes. And I'd like you to kind of look at this and watch how her character arc goes along with the story. And then you can, if you've seen the movie, you can also see the plot, right? And then basically we will come back and well, you can start plotting character 1, and then we'll come back and in our next sprint, we'll plot, we'll continue with characters 1, 2, and 3 to try to get you to think more finely or in more fine detail about how their character is going to evolve during the plot of the novel, right? All right, so we are starting now. And I don't think I've ever said it before, but if you are getting value from these sessions, you feel free to subscribe or to leave comments. And that always helps other people to find this course. The more amazing novelists we have, the better, in my opinion, right? All right, so I will see you in approximately 20 minutes. And we're back, right? How did it go? I really hope that seeing Evelyn Wang's character arc was helpful for you in creating the arc for your own characters. And again, you can always take one of these blank sheets and create the character arc and the plot for one of your favorite books or your favorite movie, even just from memory, because it allows you to get into that mode of thought and understand what's happening behind the scenes, right? How their character arc is really behind the scenes. But when you focus on it, it becomes one of the front and center, one of the foremost points. So, I wanted to read you a quick quote. I have this book called Characters and Viewpoint by Orson Scott Card. It's one of my favorite fantasy writers, back in the day. And he says here, one of the surest signs of an amateur story is when the strange or important events happen around the narrator or the point of view character, and he doesn't have an attitude toward them. Attitude is the other side of the coin of causation. Motive tells us why he acts as he does. Attitude is the way he reacts to outside events. And one of the reasons why I wanted to read this quote is because when you really have a strong character and you have them in categories, if something happens, you know how they're going to act. Right? So let's say they get a new computer, or let's say their dishwasher breaks, right? Depending on what category they're in, these characters will react completely differently. With something negative, one character might become angry, another might become frightened, another one might become despairing, And by doing this work first, you start to understand your characters. That way, when you're building the plot through the novel, you already know, or you have a feeling of how these characters are going to react. And it's going to be really instinctive. Spending this time now developing these characters makes it instinctive later when you're writing it, right? Okay, so we have one more break, and then we have our last sprint. So right now, drink water, reminder, and we're going to do 2 minutes of lower body stretching today. So get out of your chair and stretch out those calves and quads and hamstrings, because you've been sitting for a while now, right? All right, and I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Okay, one thing I wanted to mention when you do your lower body stretching, one thing that a lot of us don't really think about is the psoas muscle. And I'll put up a couple of stretches here. Basically, this is the muscle that gets really tight when you sit for a long time, right? It basically connects your abdomen to your thighs or to your legs. And so when you sit for a long time, that tends to tighten up. And it can actually rotate your pelvis forward. It can do all kinds of things that you really don't want to happen. So if you're writing for a long time, it's really good to do these kind of backward back bends. It's also good to do side stretches. Just a very simple side stretch will stretch both your upper body and it will stretch your psoas muscle at the same time. And you can look that up. There are so many different YouTube videos that show you how to stretch your psoas in 5 minutes. That it's very good to include when you're doing lower body stretching. All right, so we are on our last sprint, and we are doing our character arc as well as building your character. So I put this paper in from yesterday for characters 2 and 3 in case you want to, flesh out something special about those characters, just so you get their kind of body movements and, one or two preferences in your mind. Pick your favorite one, maybe just jot down, one or two things in this chart. Don't overdo it. So that you can make your characters different. And, now that you're looking at this chart, you might look at it through the framework of the idea, of what categories you have them in or what theme you're trying to express. So, what body movements would be consistent with that theme. I mean, the thing I can think of is that a person who's afraid of commitment, every time somebody reaches for their hand, they're going to kind of pull away, right? They don't want people touching them. Or somebody who fears abandonment might always be clinging to their friends or touching people, right? So you can look at the categories and themes, and that will help you do this worksheet number 2 for characters 2 and 3. And then, you're going to have your character arcs for characters 2 and 3. So basically, you can work on whatever you want. For the next 20 minutes. It looks like this is going to be our last sprint. So I originally had 5 sprints for each lesson, but I think that it's going to go down to 4 most of the time, at least in the beginning few days, because there's so much to discuss in how we build our characters, how we build our world, how we build our plot. And then, once we get to writing chapters, these lectures might be shorter, and then we can add in that last sprint, right? All right, so we have 20 minutes. This will be our last sprint, and we are going to start now. And I'll see you back soon. Okay, and we are finished with our last sprint. I hope you've had a chance to do all three of your characters. If you haven't, feel free to keep going, right? Because you're going to want at least, the ideas of your categories and themes and the things that you want to express in the novel for all three, or, if you have more than that, nailed down before we start plotting. So tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to do world building. And then the next day we will start 3 days of plotting. So it's going to get very, very exciting. Um, and I wanted to say thank you. See you tomorrow. And always remember that you are the magic. So you're the one that makes the magic. People are going to read you, and you want to make your novel the best that it can be, right? All right. Have a great day. And I will see you here, same time, same place tomorrow.